Hello YouTubers. There's something I want to talk about, and hopefully I can keep it down to less than 10 minutes. It's about something that happened to me 30 years ago. I was 16 and I just left home and I was living with my older sister, who was 22 at the time, and her boyfriend, who was 32, and she had a 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. And she'd be with this guy for less than a year, and she was 5 months pregnant at the time. And we were living in Adelaide, and we decided in the Christmas of 1976 that we would travel by car over to Sydney, approximately a 12-hour drive, to visit his relatives. So we went over to Sydney and we stayed at his nephew's house, with his nephew's family, for about a week. And one night we all got quite drunk, and I'd been put up in the couple we were staying with had put their young child in the bedroom with them, and I was put up in the child's bedroom, and my sister and her partner and little girl were put up in the lounge room on a double mattress on the floor. So it got late and we all went to bed. We were all very drunk, and I went to bed fully clothed, and as I woke up during the night and got quite hot, I gradually removed my clothing until I was naked. And then sometime later in the evening I woke up to find that my sister's boyfriend had come into my room and was in the bed laying on top of me. I, being still quite sort of inebriated, I didn't know what was going on. I was in a bit of a shock. I simply just put my hands over my face and was thinking about it for a few seconds, trying to decipher what was happening. And as I did this, he got off me and just sighed. Neither of us said anything to each other, and he got up and he walked out of the room, and I saw that he was naked as well. So the next morning, naturally I was very confused. I didn't know what to do. I could hear everybody out in the kitchen. They were all, making breakfast. Everybody was happy. He was being exceptionally friendly and jovial, was calling me out to breakfast. I didn't want to say anything about it at the time and embarrass my sister in front of his family, and I had to get home. I was 12 hours away from my home and I was dependent on this man to get home, so I said nothing. So we travelled back to Adelaide, and I was still undecided about what I was going to do. I didn't think it was serious enough to risk, breaking up my sister's family over it, so I probably wasn't going to do anything about it until what was less than a week after the incident. I was sitting in the lounge room with my sister and her boyfriend, and they started to have a discussion, and he was saying to her that it was possible to have sex with a woman without her knowing about it. And she was saying, no, that's not possible, not if she was just asleep. Maybe if she was, dead drunk, it might be possible. But and they were arguing backwards and forwards, and he was adamant that it was possible. And naturally this really upset me, because I hadn't really thought until then that the sexual act may have taken place. I really felt like I'd woken up and caught him before anything had happened. But after witnessing him saying this, I started to feel concerned that he'd perhaps done more than I was aware of. So I got very upset, and I just blurted it out what had happened. that night a week earlier, and I think he left the room at that point. My sister asked me a whole series of questions. I told her that when he rolled off me, that he'd laid on his back and put his hands behind his head before sighing and leaving the room, and she told me that he always did that after they'd had sex, which concerned me. And she also told me that she remembered him getting up that night naked to, as she thought, go to the bathroom, but that he was gone for at least a half an hour, because she remembered, being concerned about whether he was feeling okay. And so I, at that point, now that it had come out into the open, I expected to get some support from my sister, more than my mother, because my mother had left the house, the family home, when I was 14, and so I'd really sort of become more dependent on my sister as like a mother, a figure to me. But her reaction to the whole thing was quite perplexing. She just sided with him in the end. She said that he probably didn't know where he was, and even further than that, she even said that he was probably in the toilet for half an hour, even though I'd specifically told her where he was, and I'd also specifically said that, I clearly remember from his sort of reaction, that there was no doubt in my mind that he knew where he was and what his intentions were. And so I discussed it with my mother. She decided to do nothing about it. She had the same opinion. She didn't want to break up my sister's family. She didn't see any point going to the police because there was no proof. I mean, God knows what that's supposed to mean. I mean, even when a sexual act is performed, there's not always proof, is there? So nothing was done, and I got over the incident quite quickly, I suppose, but the reaction and the lack of support from my mother and sister stayed with me for a very, very long time. On top of that, I also had to endure the man who became my brother-in-law and fathered another 2 children with my sister, calling me a slut, and calling me names and bad-mouthing me to my sister for 30 years, 25 years. And, her having a bad attitude towards me, all that time over something that was never my fault. And but I did kind of forget all about it until 5 years ago. My sister and her husband finally separated, and she moved overseas. And then in 2004, she came back to Adelaide for a brief holiday. So she virtually, not only was she separated from her husband, she virtually wasn't even having a relationship with her adult children anymore. So when she returned to Adelaide for a brief holiday in 2004, we had a few drinks, and I just felt compelled to discuss this issue with her. She'd been separated from her husband for 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. So I hoped to achieve some closure by perhaps getting her to see things from my point of view and show me a little bit of support, and not side with him. But if anything, she was even more adamant in her beliefs, even though we hadn't discussed this thing for 25 years. She still sided with him. She still felt that he probably didn't know where he was, and she still felt that he was probably in the toilet for half an hour, regardless of what I'd said to her. So as a result of that, my sister and I have not spoken for 2 years, and for the last 2 years it's really weighed heavily on me, extremely so. And so to the point that 3 months ago I went to the police and made a statement. just very recently I've had contact with them, and they're at the point now where they're going to decide whether to pursue the matter. Now that 3 months has passed, I'm now starting to feel a little bit guilty about the whole thing. I'm concerned that maybe I'm, trying to punish him for what my sister has done to me, and I'm a little bit confused about the whole thing. He should have been punished. He should have been at least spoken to about it, but nothing ever. Nobody ever said anything to him. I mean, I don't know about any private conversations that went on between him and my sister, because she wouldn't tell me. I've asked her, she'd never divulged that to me. And so I'm now actually sort of scared about what's to come. I won't back down though. I'm going to see it through, and perhaps maybe I'll get the closure that I'm after. I don't know. I'll wait and see. Any video responses from anybody, any advice or opinion would be really appreciated, sincerely. I honestly haven't had a chance to talk about this thing with anybody, and now I'm talking to you, so thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing your responses. Thanks guys, bye.